Saad, famed across all Arab tribes for his unmatched skill in archery, fit the arrow to his bow, drew with calm ferocity, and released. The arrow sliced through the air and struck Huban straight in the neck. A roar of laughter burst from Saad's companions as Huban staggered, took a few trembling steps, and collapsed into the dust. Now, as Khalid rode toward Medina, 4 years after that raging battlefield, the mountain of Uhud slowly rose on the horizon, lifting higher and higher with every step of his horse. And with it came memories he could no longer silence, memories of companions he once fought beside, and the blood of those same companions spilled before his eyes. Belief had turned brother against brother, and in the haunting quiet of the desert, Khalid found himself wrestling with a question he had never dared ask. Why am I going to Medina? To force my belief on them? Or to let their belief conquer me? Then came another voice from the past, Abu Sufyan, just a day earlier. Is it true, Khalid? Are you really going to Medina? Has the blood of Waleed turned cold in your veins? These echoes followed him like ghosts across the sand, until they faded, and he sank into the memory of those he had fought, and those whose blood had flowed before him. Among them was Musab ibn Umair, one of the finest men Khalid had ever seen. When Quraysh first turned their backs on the battlefield, they had barely gone a short distance before Khalid spurred his horse and reached Abu Sufyan. "Why are you leaving the battle unfinished?" Khalid demanded. "The Muslims are broken. Have they lost all strength?" Abu Sufyan, wanting the same decisive end, rallied a handful of mounted warriors who turned back. Khalid already knew where the Messenger of God ﷺ stood, but Abu Sufyan sent him in another direction and dispatched others to kill the Prophet ﷺ. By now, more Muslims had reached the Prophet ﷺ. Ibn Kamiyah once more tried to break through and strike him down. At that moment, Musab ibn Umair stood near the Prophet ﷺ, while Amara tended to 2 or 3 wounded men beside him. The moment she saw the Quraysh returning for another assault, she left the wounded, seized a fallen sword, and stood firm. A mounted warrior charged toward her. She couldn't reach the rider, so she struck his horse with such force that it crashed to the ground. The rider fell. Amara leapt over the horse and struck him, wounding him badly enough that he fled in terror. Meanwhile, Musab ibn Umair, whose height, gait, and appearance so closely resembled the Prophet ﷺ, was attacked by Ibn Kamiyah, who mistook him for the Messenger of God ﷺ. Musab fought with fierce skill, clashing blade against blade, until one heavy strike from Ibn Kamiyah brought him down. Musab fell and was martyred. This was the young man raised with such luxury that his burial shroud wasn't even long enough to cover him. Mara saw Musab fall. Fury exploded within her. She struck Ibn Kamiyah with her sword, but he wore armor, and the strike did not cut through. Ibn Kamiyah retaliated with a vicious blow to her shoulder, and she collapsed, severely wounded. The Prophet ﷺ, just a few paces away, advanced toward Ibn Kamiyah. But Ibn Kamiyah twisted his angle and struck the Prophet ﷺ. His blow landed upon the helmet, sliding off and striking the Prophet's shoulder. Behind the Prophet ﷺ was a pit. Wounded and pushed back by the blow, he fell into it. Ibn Kamiyah stepped back and screamed with all his breath, "I have killed Muhammad!" His voice echoed across the battlefield. Quraysh heard it, and Muslims heard it. Quraysh rejoiced. Muslims felt their hearts collapse. Panic surged, and they began retreating toward the mountain. Then came a thunderous cry. "O lovers of the Prophet! If the Prophet is gone, shame on us if we live! What kind of followers flee the moment they hear he has fallen?" The Muslims stopped. The shout ignited their souls like fire. On foot, they hurled themselves at the mounted warriors. Their attack broke upon the cavalry of Khalid and Ikrimah. Khalid remembered it even now, how many Muslims fell by his hand, including Rifa'a ibn Waqsh. A sharp pain pricked his heart. For the first time, he wondered whether all this bloodshed had ever meant anything. But back then, the Muslims were his fiercest enemies. Their strength was gone. On foot, they could not resist mounted warriors forever. They were forced to retreat uphill. The Messenger of God, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, also moved with his companions toward a narrow valley. Just as earlier Muslims had abandoned their position in the excitement of victory, turning the battle against themselves, now Quraysh warriors rushed upon Muslim corpses and wounded men, tearing at armor and weapons, collecting spoils from bodies that still breathed. Some of Quraysh chased after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but his defenders fought them with such ferocity that most were cut down. Those who survived fled. The Messenger of God sallallahu alaihi wasallam reached a higher position. From there, he surveyed the battlefield. Of the 30 companions who had fought around him, 16 now lay martyred. The remaining 14 were wounded, some severely. From that vantage point, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam could not see a single Muslim. The believers, convinced he had been killed, had scattered in grief. Some fled back to Medina. Others hid within the valleys of the mountain. At last, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was able to tend to his wounds. His daughter, Fatima, radiyallahu anha, exhausted after searching desperately for her father, found him. Nearby was a spring. Ali, radiyallahu anh, brought water and offered it. Fatima washed her father's wounds, sobbing as she did. Khalid remembered how the rumor of the Prophet's death had given him a strange, hollow satisfaction. But then came a roar that shook the valley. "Muslims, rejoice! Our Prophet is alive! He is alive and unharmed!" Khalid had laughed at the absurdity of it, and yet something inside him had twisted. What had happened was this. Just as scattered Muslims wandered in twos and threes, Ka'b ibn Malik came upon the very spot where the Prophet was resting. Overcome with emotion, he shouted, "The Prophet is alive!" His voice swept across the battlefield like thunder. Muslims everywhere turned and ran toward that voice. Even Umar ibn al-Khattab reached the Prophet by following that cry. Before this moment, Abu Sufyan had been walking among the corpses, searching one by one for the body of Muhammad. Every Qurayshi he saw, he asked, "Have you not seen Muhammad's corpse?" When he encountered Khalid, he repeated, "Khalid, have you seen Muhammad's body?" "No," Khalid replied, and then leaned closer, asking, "Are you certain he is dead?" "Yes," Abu Sufyan said sharply. "Where can he escape to? Do you doubt it?" "I do doubt it, Abu Sufyan," Khalid answered. "I will doubt until I see it myself. Muhammad is not a man who dies easily." "You sound enchanted by Muhammad," Abu Sufyan sneered. "Was he not one of us? Did you not know him? The one responsible for such slaughter must one day be slain. He is dead. Go, find the body, identify it. We will take his head to Mecca." At that exact moment, the mountainside thundered with Ka'b ibn Malik's cry again. "Rejoice, Muslims! Our Prophet lives!" Khalid turned to Abu Sufyan. "You hear that? Now I will tell you where Muhammad is. I am going to strike him myself, but I cannot promise you I will kill him." Khalid had earlier seen the Prophet disappear into a narrow cleft of the mountain. He gathered a few horsemen and began riding toward that very spot. According to Ibn Hisham, when the Prophet saw Khalid's horsemen climbing toward the pass where he lay wounded, He instinctively uttered a supplication. "O mighty Lord, stop them where they are." Khalid and his men climbed upward, but the path became narrow, dangerously narrow. Their horses were forced into a single file. The Prophet lay injured inside the pass. Umar steps down the slope, sword drawn. "Son of Waleed," Umar thundered, "look at this narrow path. Look at this steep ascent. Do you think you and your horsemen will escape our blades?" Khalid, master of warfare, understood instantly. This was no place for cavalry, no room to maneuver, no space to fight. Silently, he turned his horse and descended. The Battle of Uhud was over. Quraysh could claim some superiority. They had inflicted heavy losses, but the war ended without victory. Yet it was our defeat. Khalid heard his own voice whisper. Muslims were 700. We were 3,000. We had 200 cavalry. We would have won only if we had killed Muhammad. A shiver ran through him. His teeth trembled. The final scene of that battlefield rose in his mind again, the one he desperately tried to shake off, yet it buzzed around him like a swarm of flies. Shame prickled in his chest. A true warrior did not feel pride in what came next. For as Khalid was descending after Umar's warning, he saw the battlefield from above. Bodies scattered everywhere, both dead and unconscious wounded. Neither Muslims nor Quraysh had yet begun collecting their dead. And then he saw Hind, wife of Abu Sufyan. She was running among the corpses with a dagger in her hand. At her signal, the Quraysh women followed her. Hind inspected every fallen body. When a body lay face down, she kicked it over with her foot to see the face. She commanded the women to search for the body of Hamza, radiyallahu an. They found him. Hind descended upon his body like a ravenous beast, ripping, tearing, mutilating. She hacked away parts of his body and flung them aside. Then she looked toward the other women gathered around her.